Hi, everyone. This is Beth Pratt-Situla. I'm the Academic Director of Nepal Geoscience in the Himalaya program with SIT Study Abroad. Thanks for joining us today. I'm glad that you're interested in the program. And hopefully this short slideshow and question and answer afterwards will help you know more about it. So during the main talk, please feel free to use your chat box if you have questions, and then Andrea will sort of let me know as those come in. Andrea is the admissions counselor for the program. At the end, she'll unmute you so that you can actually ask verbal questions. There's also a raise hand option down in your lower right of your screen. If you're not finding your chat box, you can sort of, as soon as you move your cursor, there should be a bar that shows in the bottom of the screen, and the chat box looks like a little chat bubble. Okay, so welcome today. I have been running the Nepal Geoscience in the Himalaya program since it started in 2013. I've been working in geoscience and education in Nepal since 2000. After working there on my master's, my PhD, I met my husband there, who I'm now married with, a Nepali man called Ajay, and we have 2 kids. We live in Denver, but I'm there all summer long in Nepal in the summers. I have a background in both geomorphology, structural geology, and especially geoscience education, geohazard education. A little bit on SIT Study Abroad more generally. It has a mission to prepare students to be interculturally effective leaders, professionals, and citizens. So we can't hope to solve global problems if we don't have people who understand how to work across cultures. SIT specializes in experience-based field approach focused on critical global issues in non-traditional locations and using local networks wherever possible. Field experiences are, of course, really fundamental in Earth environmental studies as well. Most programs feel that they're pivotal to understanding the Earth processes. If you don't see them, how can you really understand how they work? And many undergraduate programs recommend or even require field experiences. Nepal Geoscience in the Himalaya. In the design process, we wanted to really make it center that Earth science knowledge underpins, or it should underpin, many societal decisions, and that we need more people capable of understanding how to bring Earth science into making societal decisions. Developing countries, such as Nepal, are particularly vulnerable to geohazards, and so understanding how to live safely with our active geology for low cost is especially important. And of course, the Himalaya have phenomenal, amazing geology. I often sort of joke with colleagues that once you get used to the scale of things in the Himalayas, it's hard to get used to anywhere else. The program started in 2013. Here's a couple of the group pictures that we've had. It's a 7-week program from the middle of the middle of June to early August. It's 9 credits. It has 3 courses, which I'll go over in more detail in a sec, including a 2-week independent study project, which the students find they really value particularly highly. The 3 courses are Earth Science Field Methods, so basic field methods, a field course that especially emphasizes geohazards, and then the field study project, 3 credits each. The program dates, I updated the dates to the June. It is indeed Monday, June 17th to Monday, August 5th, but it should say 2019 program dates here. The application deadline is April 1st annually, but it has rolling admissions, so you can put your application in now. The orientation is about 4 days in Kathmandu, and then we're out on excursion for about 4 weeks. We come back for some days, this is a little bit variable, in Kathmandu, and then the students go back out again on their 2-week field study project. And then they give their presentations, and then that's the end of the program. So that's basically how the 7 weeks pan out into 4 different sections. One of the things that is integral to the way the program is run is the Nepali co-designers. I co-designed the program, and I do co-teach the program with Nepali faculty members. You can see two of the four folks I've worked with the most. They are integral to effective local relevant science, a local advisor network, safety and security, and the other part that's key is that we have Nepali students from Nepal's Tribhuvan University as co-participants. Oops, weird. And so you can see the students working together here in the two different pictures. So you get a chance to know people from Nepal, work with them, people from a different background, different set of assumptions in a different educational system, and sometimes you're doing projects with them out away from the main group, and they can help serve as cultural and linguistic translators as well. A little bit on the amazingness of the geology in this area. Of course, the Himalayas and the Tibetan Plateau, which is a larger part of the area, formed as India over the last about 50 million years is about when contact was made, and it has been moving into Asia ever farther ever since and plowing up this high, dry terrain that we know of as the Himalayan-Tibetan system. So these mountains are fundamental to regional identity and economy, but of course that comes along with things like earthquake hazards. So understanding this balance is something that we talk about a fair bit. Also, the climate is really dramatic in this area. The summer monsoons is a critical factor in the economy and the society of Central Asia, South Central Asia, but of course it can also bring devastating floods and landslides. Droughts cause big problems. There's huge variation in the climate and environment. In the south side of the mountains, we'll see very wet green forests, and just a few days walk to the north is quite arid. A bit of a map view on the usual itinerary that we take. So we start in Kathmandu, and we do on the road along the front of the high, sort of in the middle hills here, and then where the green is showing is where we're primarily hiking. And we do cut up the Kaligandaki Valley, or possibly, one of the adjacent valleys in this area between 8,000 meter peaks. And this is where we do a lot of the basic field geology while we're walking. A bit of a different view of it here, sort of Google Earth from the front. You can see we do traverse this area in a bus, and then this is where we are doing the walking up here in the high mountain. We do come back to Pokhara, which is a tourist city after our main time in the mountains. The orientation in Kathmandu goes over geology, environment, some short language courses, and some cultural excursions and learning about partner organizations in the earth and environmental sciences. This is a picture of our program hall, which is was originally built as sort of minor royalty house in the Kathmandu area. The first course is the Earth Science Field Skills, and I really think of this course as learning to read the rocks. Like, you can look at a rock and there's so much you can tell about the past environments and the past geological processes. This is what is considered more like classic geology field skills, so making maps and cross sections, learning to take a really good notebook, possibly incorporating remote sensing observations in, and really, I think of it as the geo-time machine. How can I transport myself back in time and see what must have been here by looking in the history left for us in the rock. The next course is called Geohazards in the Himalaya, but I do tend to think of it as more broad than just the hazards, and really as the human Earth system interconnections. We do spend a particular amount of time thinking about landslides, because this is a day-to-day, year-to-year major problem. Also flooding and drought, earthquake hazards, agriculture, soils, climate change, hydropower, engineering, geology, and geomorphology. So Even though we go up the Kaligandaki Valley thinking about the sort of the bedrock, and we come down thinking about where people are living and what's the geology where they're living and what are the hazards. And then we do more work when we come out to the road system related to hazards closer to larger towns. The final section, as I mentioned, is the field study project, working in pairs or sometimes individually. Students design and conduct their own research project and present the results in a talk and also in a written format, in a written paper. So just some examples of the type of projects that people have worked on. So there's been post-earthquake damage analysis. 2015, you may know there was a magnitude 7.8 followed by a 7.2 earthquake, and so there was a lot to think about after that regarding the damage that happened. We had students look at groundwater changes in conjunction with the earthquakes, arsenic water testing, soil fertility chemistry, geologic fault mapping, sinkhole and landslide hazard mapping, straight up petrology and structural geology, water quality, land use, dendrochronology, and climate change perception. So there's been a really broad range, and students are free to choose things from what I would call pure geology to mostly, societal earth science. The prerequisites are 2 upper division, meaning above intro level, so 100 like Geology 101 type of classes. You need to have a bit higher than that. I'm willing to accept that type of a course from a geoscience department, environmental science, assuming that the course is earth science related and not biology purely, or a physical geography course. So more than one department can provide the prerequisites for the program. One thing I like to mention is that many foreigners, many visitors come to Nepal, especially geologists, they come for the mountains, but end up being deeply touched by the society and by the people. And that is one of the differences with a Nepal field camp compared to an American one, is we're really doing geology in and around people living in their rural environment instead of in places where there's very, very few humans that live there. We are there during the monsoon time, and so but I like to let people know that the majority of the rain does fall at night, and I have now run 5 SIT summers and 2 other program summers doing a different program, and I've only ever lost a few days to rain. So even though it is wet, we're still quite able to continue the work, and there is a reason why we hike up to the rain shadow side, because it does get us out of some of the greatest amounts of the rain. But we're very careful about safety when it comes to that, and we're very careful about where and when we travel. People are often curious about the accommodations and the food. Geez, that seems to be on some sort of a timer I don't know about. Sorry about that. We stay in small trekking hostels called tea houses, or sort of modest tourist hotels. The local cuisine is very similar to what people would expect from Indian food, but Nepali food has its own, differences in the way they do their curries. So it's not camping, it's staying more like it in hostels. There is other types of food available too, periodically. And transportation is mostly by foot, with the longer distances on the main part of the roads by bus or minibus, or sometimes it just sort of depends. You should be reasonably fit, but it's not necessary at all to be an Olympic athlete. Reasonable fitness is good. Many days of the hiking are on gravel roads. There will be some days with off-trail hiking and some scrambling, but this or gravel road like this with relatively little traffic are our typical trails. So that was mostly what I wanted to present on. I would love to take questions at this point.
So Lindsay is asking, what is the maximum capacity for students on the program?
The maximum capacity is 20 American students, and for every 10 American students we bring 4 Nepali students. So that would be a total of 28 students with 20 U.S. students and 8 Nepali students. We've never been quite full, so I've never hit capacity. But that's
And the next question is, how competitive is the application process?
Well, you might be able to
see yeah. Sure. Yeah, so obviously, like Beth said, the prerequisites in terms of previous coursework is important. We do require at least a minimum of a 2.5 GPA, and that's you've completed at least 1 semester's worth of undergraduate courses. Another important key thing to keep in mind is that we do offer admission on a rolling basis. So that means the sooner you get in your application, the higher your chances, because at that point there'll be more spots still available. Whereas if you're submitting closer to the program deadline, by that point there are spots that are already filled. And another question is, what is the cost of the program? So if you want a full breakdown, I recommend going to the program webpage. It has both tuition and room and board listed, as well as some additional costs such as visa expenses. And there you can find, what is covered under tuition and what is exactly covered under room and board. And if you want, I can email that link to you as well.
Yeah, you could probably put it in the chat box too. It's just
sure.
sit.edu/NPG, standing for Nepal Geoscience, NPG. But she can send it to you in the chat. And there are, of course, scholarship options, and it depends on your school what the student aid, what the financial aid might be for a summer program. So that may be something you can have discussions with about with your particular school. I can actually send Andrea. Why don't I send you the link to a couple field camp scholarship programs? None of them are going to offset the whole cost of it, but it can help. So Geoscience, there's a couple different options for trying to get some money to go to attend a field program in Geoscience.
Sure, that would be great. SIT also offers need-based scholarships for summer. It's anywhere ranging from $500 to $3,000. And it looks like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Beth.
I was going to say, $3,000, helps a lot.
Yes.
It brings the price down to something quite competitive, actually, with domestic programs that are out of state for you.
And then another question is, do you know the credit transfers for different schools, or should I ask my school directly? It would be best just to talk to your school. The way that our courses are, going to be coded in your SIT transcript, you can look, again, on that program webpage. I think they're all geology credits, but sometimes schools will code them a little bit differently. But it would be, I would make a stop to your study abroad office and just clarify.
And I am happy to work with you and or your department if they're like, well, I don't know if this qualifies, and if they would, we have the syllabi on the website, and I'm happy to talk through which field skills you would be getting and where the geomorphology would come in, any way to be helpful to maximize your credit transfer. So I'm happy to talk to whoever in your department makes those decisions, if that would be helpful.
And we have another question, is this program for recently graduated or graduate students? So the credits that we offer are undergraduate courses. There are some students in the past, for example, for our programs who recently graduated in May, and then, the summer after they graduate, they'll go on a program. But one thing to keep in mind is, again, you may not get credits transferred because you're no longer affiliated with your school, and it may also impact financial aid. Do we have any other questions? You can feel free to type them in the chat box found on the right side of, let's see. So what is the biggest thing students fail to prepare for?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if I would call it a failure to prepare, because it's really not possible to prepare a fully, like, I completely know what it's going to be like to be in a completely different society and culture, right? So some students, the differences just don't seem difficult at all, and other students, they do go through more of what you'd call a culture shock. So I don't know how much more you can prepare for that, other than just to be aware that that's very normal. And if you feel overwhelmed at times, like, you can always talk to me, or talk to your friends, or take the time you need, but don't feel like there's anything wrong, with you to feel like, wow, this is hard than I thought, or different than I thought. But by the end of the program, almost everybody comes around to seeing where they've really gained in it. I mean, at a very totally logistical level, like, I'm very clear about what kind of compass I want you to bring, or one of a couple different options. And then every year I get people that don't have that kind of compass. I'm like, I show pictures. So bring the right notebook and the right compass. It's totally in the directions, in the packing instructions. So yeah, there's a little bit of that happens as well.
Are there any other questions at this point? Again, feel free to type it in the chat box. I know a couple of you have also typed it in the Q&A section. That's fine too. Is there any downtime for exploring the area?
That's a good question, downtime. So there are days off, I have some students say, oh yeah, we had a lot of time, time to explore, and others who felt like there wasn't as much time. But we do several different cultural visits to different things, like Muktanath Temple, usually some of the more historic areas in the Kathmandu Valley. There's a couple of days in Pokhara after one project is done before we start another. And then the biggest time is really during the FSP, the Field Study Project, because at that point students have about 11 or 12 days where they have to just go out and do their project, and they say what happens with their own time. And then they just have to be back in time to finish the write-up and give the presentation. So that's the time that has the maximum flexibility. But I think if a student is really interested in exploring Nepal more, that students have been very happy with coming early or leaving later, and having time where they're truly at their own reconnaissance to visit parts of the country. Of course, SIT can't support you in any way during the time outside of the program, but it's still a wonderful place to visit on your own.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, I want to thank you for joining us today. I hope you learned, more about this program. And again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions.